Greetings and welcome to the ROI Clear podcast. My name is Ray Hightower, and today we are fortunate to have as our guest Mr. Nelson Lee. Nelson Lee is founder and CEO of Peak Equity Group, and he's also president of Landscape Works and owner of Osteo Strong. We'll hear a little bit about all of those today, but please join me in welcoming our guest, Mr. Nelson Lee. Nelson, welcome to ROI Clear.
Thank you so much, Ray, for having me. I feel honored and blessed to be part of your community and given this opportunity to speak with you and reach out to your audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We're glad to have you here. To kick things off, you have so many things on your resume, on your LinkedIn profile. I mean, it's long, so many things going on. So to focus in on a few things that we can cover in a discussion, our short discussion today, why don't you give us an elevator pitch? And for those who are new to ROI Clear, Nelson is on an elevator with someone he wants to influence. Nelson, what would you say to that person in the course of an elevator ride?
Oh my gosh, too many things, right? So I really have to hone down what I'm trying to introduce to somebody. So I know Peak Equity is a real estate investment group that I created. So I'd love to use that pitch only for now, if that's okay with you, Ray.
Okay, fair enough.
When I'm on an elevator, or even prior to getting on an elevator, depending on where I'm at in my audience, if it's for somebody I don't know, or somebody just coming off an elevator at a real estate convention, or even a landscape, I'll talk to them a little bit about my real estate, because that's really my passion. Although my other businesses are also passions of mine, but real estate, I've been very avid in with my choices, I guess, just to enjoy, right? So my pitch would be, I help people who are looking to put their money to work for them, earning passive income through real estate investments. And when I mention that, it kind of perks their ears pretty quick,
yes,
right? And leaves a little bit of doubt, like, hey, what do you, like, okay, I get it, but like, what is it exactly you do?
Yeah. Are you one of those late night infomercials, or are you legit? That's one of the things they may be asking, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. You know what's interesting? Looking at your background, you and I have something in common. We both studied computer science in college.
Yes.
And I was wondering if you might connect the dots, please, between your study of computer science and what you're doing now as a real estate syndicator.
Well, the funny thing is, I did go to study computer science. I never graduated with the degree. So I only went to college for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it wasn't a good fit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I advocate to people who want to go to school. I have a 21-year-old daughter who's in college right now at University of Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
We're super, super proud of her. She does amazingly well in school, and she's definitely a scholar.
Mm-hmm.
Where me personally, that wasn't my path. So I learned by the school of hard knocks, investing money, right, in areas maybe I shouldn't have been, but I kind of took that risk. I lost a lot of money. And to me, that money that I lost was my college education, right? So I'm not for or against schooling, and I'm not for or against going out into the real world and learning. I think everybody finds their own path and will be able to figure out their own path and let things around them guide them to where they need to be.
Yes. School of Hard Knocks. And we learn a lot from there, and we carry those lessons forward throughout our careers. I'm wondering if you might share with us, I don't know if you have one that's appropriate for the audience, but would you happen to have a story from the School of Hard Knocks, perhaps a lesson that you learned in that school, and maybe share with our audience how that lesson continues to serve you today?
Oh boy, yeah. I mean, there's so many lessons that can be learned in anything that goes awry, right? So I never really looked at problems growing up as or challenges, and like always looked at things as a learning experience, right? So if you have an issue and something comes up that doesn't turn out to be exactly what you expected, so if that's a learning experience. And I know in 1994, when I started my real estate investment that really, it was a good time to be a real estate
Mm-hmm.
investor, right?
Yes.
The economy was thriving. It was really the beginning of the internet. The stock market was not doing so well. It's about when the tech bubble started to burst in mid-90s, and real estate was something to really sink your teeth into and get a grip on, learn how to invest in that. So I did really well, up until 2006, right? Everybody was riding the wave. Uh,
Yes.
Economy was doing really good. Lending was okay. It started getting better. Then in 2006, 2007, we kind of got the rug pulled out from under us. Similar
Mm-hmm.
to like what's going on right now, not to the extent that it was in 06, 07. I
Mm-hmm.
invested a lot of money in speculations,
Yes.
spec building, especially in like the Miami area.
Mm-hmm.
Florida was really hot to invest in, and
Mm-hmm.
I invested a lot of money into that. Thinking like that was the next big thing in 3 years. I'd enter into the market with spec building, technically high rises. They were building along the coast. They were building high rise condos, and I purchased two of them with a pretty large sum of money
Mm-hmm.
as a deposit. And then when everything hit the fan, basically got out of them and just left all that money on the table because there was really no place to go. It was either you
Wow.
closed on it or you just walked away from all of your deposits. So that was a huge lesson for me,
Yes.
like to never speculate in a manner that doesn't make sense, right? Uh,
Mm.
the other thing is, right, like what Warren Buffett says, when people are in, he gets out. When people are out, you get in,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's the
Yeah.
opposite mentality. And unfortunately, I got caught up in the moment and kind of went where the herds went and got burned really bad. But thankfully, with all my businesses, I was able to navigate my way through those losses. And just with a more abundant mindset that I have, knew that on the other side, that was a little bit of a challenge, but
Mm-hmm.
created other ways to make up for those losses. So I feel very blessed and honored to be in that position.
You've shared so many lessons there. There's a bunch to unpack. One, the contrarian mentality. When other people are coming out, you go in. When they're going in, you come out. So it takes a lot of courage and intestinal fortitude to be contrarian when everyone else is going in one direction. And you also shared that you had multiple businesses. These were, of course, generating cash flow for you while what was happening with real estate investment wasn't happening. Tell us a little bit, what's your mindset around running multiple businesses? How is it that, every human only has 168 hours in a week? How is it that you're able to run multiple businesses when some other people struggle to run one?
Oh, I love that question, man. I get that asked. Get that asked of me so often when I meet people, and they
Yes.
ask me, exactly what I do. And when I start rambling off all these businesses that I run, they're like, "Dude, do you sleep?" And I think that you may have asked me that question when we first met.
Oh,
And
yes, yes.
honestly, I really don't sleep much.
Okay.
So, because I don't sleep much, I sleep my average amount of sleep per day is about 4.5 to 5 hours a day. So I
Okay.
can operate on 19 hours straight through without really needing rest.
Yes.
And that's what gives me a little bit more opportunity to get things done.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is, besides myself, because I wish I could only take myself as credit for everything that I do, right? It's really about the team that you surround yourself
Yes.
with.
Yeah.
So, and that to me is, that's the goose that laid the golden egg. If you
Yes.
can find those people that you can surround yourself with and bring into your group and give them the ability to manage and help you manage,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I learned very early in the beginning. So my first business was my landscape contracting company,
Yeah.
which, there was only three of us in it in the beginning, me, myself, and I. So I did everything, right? I did
Yes.
absolutely everything
Yes.
myself. And then I figured, like, if I'm doing everything myself, there's only X amount of dollars that I can actually earn in a day.
Yep.
So I learned very quickly, like, to hire people would be the only way I could scale. And that's my belief in any business, unless your choice is to be a solopreneur, which, there's nothing wrong with that either.
Right. Right. So your secret to running your multiple businesses is building teams. What advice can you give to our listeners about building teams? What do you look for in a teammate? What questions do you ask? What tests do you put in place to evaluate character? I mean, go back to Buffett. Buffett says when he's hiring somebody, he looks for intelligence, integrity, and energy. But you may have a different set of criteria. What goes through your mind when you're building a team and you're evaluating people to be part of that team?
So I'm not much different than what Warren Buffett subscribes to,
Mm-hmm.
especially since I kind of quoted him
Yeah,
in
yeah,
my
yes,
own
yes,
words, right?
yes.
So I mean, to me, you have mentors to learn from, and I don't want to reinvent the wheel ever. So
Mm-hmm.
my experience has always been to learn from the people that have already done it because they're successful. So for
Mm-hmm.
me, I look for that in myself and others. And as far as interviewing people, yes, it's really important for me to have people that have integrity, right? That are true to themselves. And
Yes.
the unfortunate thing right now in general is that when people are interviewing, obviously they're putting their best foot forward, or at least you hope they are, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you could go by face value. People could say the right things, but one of the major components of an interview process for me, especially people that are helping me run my company. So whether it be an assistant manager, a manager, operations manager, the manager of my center in Osteo Strong, I like to have them do a disc test. Um,
Yes.
or Briggs Meyer, so people are
Yes.
familiar with Briggs Meyer as opposed to
Right.
DISC.
Yes.
So to me, your personality and how you conduct yourself is foremost the most important thing,
Right.
because you can't change what people's ultimate personalities are, right? What they
Yes.
fall into when they're in a mindset of fear. They're going to go
Mm-hmm.
back to who they are. So
Right.
I want to know how that person is and how I can strengthen their strong points and not necessarily work on their weak points.
Right.
Because to me, having the strength of that person is going to do me better than trying to correct their weaknesses.
Sure. Sure. So you use Myers-Briggs and DISC. So those are certainly good assessment tools. Could you give us an example of, maybe you don't have to name names, of course, but maybe an example of when you hired someone and it worked out really well, and maybe an example of when you hired someone and it did not work as well? Let's go to two extremes there if we can.
Hmm. So, okay. So I hired uh office manager some years back in my earlier in my career.
Hmm.
Uh, it was probably around, I want to say 1995-ish.
Yes.
And at the time, I didn't use either of those tools in my tool
Hmm.
belt.
Yeah.
It was a recommendation from a friend, and they ended up doing really well. And they were with me for about 10 years.
Hmm.
And it was just the synergy that I had with them during the
Yeah.
interview process and the recommendation from a friend, because I feel when it, recommendations come in from other people that like know you and know how you operate and have that goal alignment, uh, that it was easy for her to absorb what I was doing. And she kind of
Mhm.
knew me a little bit just from hearing from her friend, right? So that went really well. And the
Yes.
only reason why they left is because she ended up getting pregnant and she wanted to spend time with family.
Oh,
So
yes.
I'm
Okay.
sure she'd probably still be with me. And they
Yes.
ended up having twins, and that was that.
Twins that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
That's a lot
So,
of work
and
and a
I
lot of
completely
love, a lot of
understood.
work and a lot of love.
Absolutely. So I completely understood where they were coming from.
Yes.
On the flip side, I'm actually dealing with some challenges a little bit right now with my center manager in Osteo Strong.
Hmm.
I have a partner in that's 50% partner, and her hiring technique is a little bit different than mine.
Mm.
She's never really had employees before,
Hmm.
so she definitely goes with her gut as opposed
Oh,
to, yeah, as opposed to vetting them 100%.
sure.
And even though I had resistance, it was something that she felt that she needed to do, and I gave her that freedom.
Hmm.
And being that I've been working with him, I'm finding definitely some challenges, right? Uh,
Yes.
in the beginning, he's a younger gentleman, enthusiastic in the beginning, and as time has been progressing, because we offered him what he was expecting. I don't believe he was incentivized enough to want to get to that next level.
Okay.
So
Yes.
that was a
Yes.
little bit of a challenge and continues to be. I mean, we're working through it together, but I
Right.
just don't know how much further I can nurture this individual.
Okay. So to cap that off, it sounds like the experience had worked out really well. That was a referral from a friend, and the person that you hired stayed with you for 10 years. One might argue that a referral from a friend is kind of like a disc or a Myers-Briggs, but only longer term and probably in more depth. So it looks like that is an effective way to do that. I hope I'm not reading too much into it, but I'm just
Not at all.
listening to what you're saying and thinking through what you're saying. And in the case where it didn't work out, that was a gut decision. We can't trust our gut because our gut will lie to us. What is who was it? Ebenezer Scrooge and Charles Dickens. He said this to the ghost of Christmas future or whatever. He says, how do I know that you're not a figment of my imagination? You could be something in my stomach. You might be an undigested bit of beef, a piece of cheese, a fragment of an underdone potato. Where was I going with that? Well, and we can't trust our gut because if we're,
So true.
something in our stomach or whatever, we have to have some empirical data. So I understand that you're working through that right now. And there's also an issue of misaligned incentives.
Yes. So one of the things that I realized is that you can't give you can't give the house away in the beginning. You really have to, and I don't want to use the word test, but you have to allow that person to grow into the position,
Yes.
as opposed to just handing him the keys, right? 100%.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's what I've done in my businesses, and not to
Yes.
say Osteo Strong isn't my business. I do own 50% of it,
Yes.
but when you have a partner, there's just like in life, if you have a life partner, husband, wife, spouse, significant other, it's a give and take.
Right.
So sometimes it's not worth um, a major discussion and allow that person to grow and learn themselves by
Mm-hmm.
stumbling a little bit, even though it may cost money. And I believe she's learned a little bit
Okay,
about
great.
what's going on now, right?
Okay. All right. That's wonderful. It's all about learning, right? All about figuring out what to do next. So it's powerful.
Absolutely.
Now let's focus on the real estate if we can for a bit. In our industry, syndication industry, certainly you have experience in single family and condos and Miami condos in the middle of the boom and the bust. So you've gone through the school of hard knocks. Now, as a syndicator, well, as you and I know, for syndicators, operators, general partners, typically there are three roles in that partnership. There's the capital raiser, the asset manager, and the acquisitions person. Where would you say you spend most of your time? Is it capital raising, asset management, or acquisitions?
Oh, I'm more of the asset manager, capital raiser,
Yes.
based on my background of what I have of my own portfolio and my construction background, and not just landscaping, renovation in general.
Yes.
I kind of handle like both of those aspects, and also pretty good capital raiser. I mean, my strength is more with preferred equity partners, um, family office, people that can write $3 to $50 million checks.
Yes.
I didn't want to be the person picking up the phone, looking for $50,000 from friends and family. Although I
Right.
do that, that's not my strength.
Yes.
So I wanted to find the people that could really make a huge impact on a team who needs that type of closure and
Yes.
surety of close. Because especially now, since COVID, the prices for multifamily, and I'm talking larger multifamily projects that are above 50,
Mm-hmm.
have gone substantially from maybe 6 figure to 7 figures, 8 figures, right? Where you used to be able to buy a 50 unit for maybe $1.5 million, 2 million, 3 million, depending on the market.
Yeah.
Now 7, 10, 20, 30 million.
Yeah,
So
sure.
depending on the markets. So for me, stepping into that arena, I've only been a syndicator since 2019, but right now I have about 400 million under asset management.
Yes.
What allowed me to get there so quickly was the fact that I was able to bring to a team a check writer that can write a check for, $20 million as a preferred equity partner, $15
Yes.
million. So, I was very honored and blessed to be able to be brought into teams that needed that gap closed
Mm-hmm.
quickly. And
Yes.
it worked. It was like a good fit for a lot of people.
Right. Right. You've built relationships. There are people who trust your judgment because you went through the school of hard knocks. They trust your judgment, and they're willing to write the check between $3 and $20 million, as you said. That's a powerful place to be. And then on asset management, what would you say is your typical role there? I mean, asset management in and of itself is a role, but what are some of the challenges that you deal with as an asset manager?
Oh wow, occupancy has been a little. You're laughing, so
Yeah,
I
yeah,
know why
yeah.
you're laughing because I'm sure when I speak about multifamily right now, depending on the class that you invest in, A is not as affected as a B or C class property right now.
Yes, yes.
That's in a challenged area,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't. When I say challenged, I'm speaking more economic income, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and the unfortunate thing is, the government enabled people to not pay rent for a few years, which
Yeah,
made things even more challenging.
sure.
So now I think we're because those that that process of enabling people to not have to pay rent uh, is come full circle, and now
Yeah.
that people are being made to pay rent, um, I think I mean, this is just my hallucination, that some people feel that they're still entitled to not pay rent. So
Mm.
occupancy has been challenging. Collections have been challenging. We've been initiating certain procedures in vetting people to bring people back in as renters.
Yes.
Whereas rents have gone up substantially, we've taken a step back a little bit and saying maybe we can't increase 10% this year, but maybe
Yeah.
we'll increase 2%, or people that are willing to renew that are
Mm-hmm.
paying their rent, we're not increasing their rent at all.
Sure.
So just navigating and understanding people's hardships as well. And and basically just having a heart, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
you want to walk in their shoes when you think about what you need to do. Always. Like if you
yeah,
can walk in somebody else's shoes and understand where they're coming from, it's always a good place to be.
sure. You know, this comes back to something you said earlier about incentives. You said that it sounds like you want to reward the people, reward the residents who are doing the right thing. If they're paying their rent on time and, taking care of the property, you want to see what you can do to work with them. It sounds like that's what you want to do. You're very oriented around incentives, it seems.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's really motivates most people. Um, I think a lot of people, in order for them to get out of their comfort zone, right? Because it's easy to stay where you are at any given time. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
when you start stretching a little bit and you
Yes.
get outside your comfort zone, I think that's where like your light really shines. and where you can really see how that can affect other people because people see you in that manner.
Get outside of your comfort zone.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Nelson, we're coming towards the end of our time together. It goes quickly. So to wrap up, there are a couple of questions I want to ask you. This has been good. I'm learning much about you and your businesses and your business philosophy. This is all powerful, and I know our listeners are getting a lot out of this also.
Thank you.
To wrap things up, what would you say, what are you reading right now, or what podcasts are you listening to right now that you would like to recommend to our audience?
Well, I just finished reading Ed Milet's book, The Power of One More.
Yes.
And oh my gosh, like even though I know so many of those things that he mentions in the book about just, creating just that one more thing that can propel you to the next level, whether it
Yes.
be going to a conference and just, at 5 o'clock when you're getting dismissed from the meeting, just to like say, hey, let me try to meet one or two more people on my way out, even though you're wiped out from talking. Just, you just never know what that relationship or even just a light conversation can bring.
Right.
Right? As far as podcasts concerned, I've been listening a lot to Pace Morby
Yes.
and
Okay.
his creative financing, and also Hunter Thompson, who I'm
Yes.
part of his collective capital,
Yes.
something that I dove into, literally just dove into a few months ago. And my belief is if you surround yourself with, once again, the people that have done it and can elevate you, you're only going to get better with what you can
Yes.
do for yourself and what you can offer other people.
Yes,
And to me,
indeed.
that's huge. It's not really about myself. It's about what I can do for others. And that'll come full circle at some point in my life.
That comes across in everything that you've said today. And in the short time we've known each other, I see that in you, what you do for others. So very grateful to hear that from you. And yes, we'll include a link in the show notes to The Power of One More by Ed Milet. Powerful book, absolutely. And also the podcast by Pace Morby. I was just talking to someone earlier this morning about Pace Morby and something he did. He just purchased a 260 unit deal with seller financing. Wow.
Yep,
That's traditionally not done. But as you said at the beginning of our time together, sometimes we need to do things that other people are not doing.
exactly.
We need to go in when they're coming out. So
Absolutely. Yeah, and Pace is pretty amazing. I had an opportunity to sit with him one-on-one for 20 minutes until a huge gathering, which Pace happens to draw all the time, started surrounding us, and I'm like, okay, thanks for your time, Pace. I don't want to take away from your fans here. So yeah,
right.
he actually mentioned that deal to me. That really intrigued me a lot. And just to be able to have that mindset of being creative with financing or anything in your life, right? Anything that you really desire, if you can find a way to do it, find a way
Yes.
to get what you want, and find those people that can help you get there. I mean, that to me is like you can't put a price on that.
Right. See, there you go. That's your team building thing from earlier. There it is.
Yes, sir.
Wonderful. Nelson Lee, it has been a pleasure speaking with you today on the ROI Clear podcast. It's been a pleasure having you here.
Thank you so much again, Ray. It was a pleasure being on, and I hope your audience did get something out of this. And love to have them, reach out to me once you put up the information and connect with people one-on-one. I appreciate your time, man,
Sure. Thank
and
you.
the opportunity.